almost slid a little bit there. Oops. There we go. It starts up. Actually, it's might be one of my best starting bikes that I have. It feels so funny to ride. It's so small. So this is hopefully going to be my last shadow video. At least for this shadow. I don't know, who knows if I'll have another one. Let her warm up a little bit. This thing is so funny to ride. It's just not what you'd expect at all. It's so stable. Like right now we're at 4,000 RPM, 50 miles an hour. And it's just stupid stable. And it's kind of like lugging along. This is 5th versus that overdrive in 6th. The overdrive is cool on it. It's a pretty peppy bike. It's got a decent amount of pep to it. I mean, it's Honda's kind of like first attempt at a V-twin, or one of them, and they just didn't do it the way that the Americans did it. They have this high revving, it's so funny to ride. The front suspension's real squishy. You can see I could bounce it like a pogo stick. Because these are actually air forks and they leak, so they're empty right now. And yeah, it just needs a fork rebuild. But I don't think I'll be doing that because I should have, knock on wood, some people coming to check this bike out today. Somebody was planning on doing it today, and I've got a couple other people messaging me. There's almost 80 on this thing. It's such a weird bike. I didn't really know what I was getting into when I got it. But I'm gonna recap basically what happened. And I've got all these videos that are on my channel, so since I first got it, I've pretty much kept a good log of what's been going on with it. But this was my first bike, my first attempted flip of any motorcycle. And I got this thing for $200, not running, no title. And so the no title part was by far the most annoying part of the whole thing. I got it running pretty quickly, a couple times, a little bit of working on it. I had to replace the main fuse, clean the carbs, and I did a bunch of little stuff to it. I had to fully rebuild the front brake. Like, little things had to happen, but otherwise it was pretty easy to get going. And for 200 bucks initial buy-in, that's great. And so I have about $1,000 in it now, including the tires and all the front brake rebuild and carb parts, new petcock, just new parts around. About around $1,000. I changed the oil and the filter and the gear oil and the shaft drive. Horn works. Turn signals work. Everything works. Got this little funny, it's a cool looking bike, it's just really small. But anyway, I get it running, and my plan is to register it through the Vermont loophole, which, if you don't know what that is, you don't need a title or residence in Vermont to register a motorcycle that is 15 years or older. And I'll caveat that by saying you do now, but a month ago you didn't. It's been a loophole for around 15 years, and they finally shut down the loophole. So I'm one of the last people to get a Vermont license plate and registration. And then what you do is you can go turn that Vermont registration into a North Carolina title and registration, because North Carolina has to accept the Vermont plate, basically. Anyway, that took so long. I can't even believe it. And now it's not even possible. You can't even do it anymore. So I think I'm going to shy away, at least for now, from the bikes that are no title. It just was so much work, and now it's going to be even more work, and it takes so long, and you have to just wait, and you're putting money into this thing, and you don't even know if you're going to be able to sell it for a lot. But it did work. It took months. I mean, I bought this bike, it's months ago. I don't remember exactly when I bought it, because it's just been a very long time. And then my other bike that I have to work on, it's so fun. It's a fun bike to ride. It's a perfect beginner bike, especially for somebody who's a little bit on the shorter side. I mean, I'm 6'1", so I'm super cramped on this thing. Not that I can't ride it, I can, it's fine. But if it was a little bit bigger, it would be really nice. But if you're like 5'9", 5'8", which is like pretty normal size for a you know, average sized dude or a girl, it's like a perfect little beginner bike. 60 right there. That's not bad. It's not like brutally slow. It's not like a Rebel. It's faster than that. It's not fast, but I don't feel like uncomfortable on it as far as power. It's got plenty of power. It makes something like 50 horsepower, which is really impressive. Almost no torque at all, but it's got a decent amount of horsepower, and the get up and go is pretty good. You can't even change the gearing if you want to, because it's a shaft drive. But hey, I think this is a really cool bike. It's got all these lights work on the dash. It's got the high beam light works. It shifts really well. The throttle is pretty responsive. And I actually have the original owner's manual and also tools for this bike. It came with a little tool pouch. I'm the second owner of it, and the first owners just had it sitting inside, so it's pretty much been an indoor bike its whole life. I definitely recommend, if you want to work on if you want to have a project bike and you find an old Honda like this, an old 80s Honda, they're a blast. They're easy relatively to work on. I've been able to find parts pretty easily, at least in the US, and it's just they're fun little bikes, and they can be had for so cheap. $200 is crazy. I mean, this is a bike I could get on and ride, even though it's a little bit uncomfortable. My back would probably hurt after a little bit. I mean, I could ride this thing anywhere. I trust it pretty well, even though it's almost 40 years old. It's fun. I'm having a good time riding it. I wish it was a little bigger. That's my only thing. But if I was a beginner, it's not a bad bike to learn on at all. I was gonna make a whole video on the Vermont loophole process, because I think it was really cool, but now that it's dead, now that the process is dead, you can't do it anymore. I'm not interested in making a video on a dated process at this point. This thing is so funny. The handlebars coming back like this is really funny to me. Out to 55 out here. I do feel like I'm on a little, like she's fast enough to get going, but it is really small. I feel like I look like I'm riding a moped a little bit, just a little bit. Like I'm not quite embarrassed to ride it. It's so funny. The V-twin revving out like that actually sounds kind of cool. It sounds a little bit like, people have been calling this the bubble bike, because the exhaust sounds like bubbly, because it's such small displacement cylinders. They just go bop, 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 bop. Sounds a little bit like a bubble bike, but when it's revving up that high, it sounds kind of cool. This is also aftermarket exhaust on this bike. It's a Mac 2-into-2 system. And these mirrors are up so high. This is definitely a bike that, like I said, if I was a little bit shorter and I was a little bit newer to riding bikes, I would put so many miles on this bike. I would probably find a seat that sat up a little higher and a little bit farther back. I think you can do, I've seen people fashion forward controls for this thing, get your feet out a little bit. You could make it comfortable if you really wanted to. But yeah, this thing is just a whole lot of fun. Surprisingly, a lot of fun for what it is. And I'm very happy that I got it. I'm excited that it's gonna be a successful flip. I have $1,000 into it. I think I could probably get $2,000 out of it at the most, at least around this local market. Which I'm not. I mean, it's making almost $1,000 off of the bike. I'm not upset about that at all. Especially a bike that's 40 years old and I didn't have to put that much money into. I got a really loud tick coming from the top end in this thing, and the more I look into it, the more people are just saying, yeah, that's how they sound. They're super loud top end, so I'm not that worried about it. It's actually really easy to ride. It's a definitely beginner friendly, I'd say. I mean, it doesn't have modern safety features. That's the only reason it wouldn't be beginner friendly. It doesn't have ABS. Suspension's not as good as a modern bike. I mean, everything's just old, so you have a lot more potential failure that you have to keep up with on just parts. If you're a girl and you just want a peppy little bike to ride around, and you're a smaller girl, this would be perfect. I mean, you're never gonna feel like, hey, I got a wave, even on the baby Honda. That's fun. I like when people wave. Sometimes if you're on a little bike, they get weird about it. They don't wave at you. Oh, I can't turn here. Just turn around. This thing is super maneuverable. Because it is so small. This downtown area. Yeah, so whether you're looking to flip a bike and you found some old Honda, you're just looking into it, or you want a beginner bike and you found some old Honda, I definitely say go for it, especially if the price is right. They're cheap, they look decently cool, especially for an 80s bike. And a Honda at that. And they're pretty maneuverable. I mean, it's decently quick. The Shadow 500 specifically. I would recommend this to anybody looking for either a bike for a project, because it's pretty easy to work on, or a new bike. Check out these birds. Hey guys. But I'm about to ride home and get this thing waxed up, and then hopefully have some people come by tonight, check it out. So the Shadow will be gone very soon, and my first real successful flip of a motorcycle will have been complete, which is very exciting for me because I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I finally just did it. It's fun to be able to ride something like this. Just have another bike, ride it for a little bit, work on it, and then get it sold is a cool thing. So, thank you guys for coming along this journey. If you made it to this part of the video, let me know what projects you've worked on with bikes in the past, or projects you want to work on in the future. And let me know if you ever had a Shadow, or are looking at a Shadow, especially an older one. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Oh, slid a little bit there. That's a pretty fun bike.